Welcome to the Conversation Project's things you might not have heard for the 12th of November, 2025. I am Jacob Payne coming to you live at the moment, 5:30 a.m. Central Time here from Arkansas, Little Rock to be exact. If you're watching us live, let us know in the chat, or if you're watching us in the replay, let us know where you're watching us in the chat, when and how we can do more things for you going forward. Now, as we tell you every single day, hopefully you'll believe at one point that the Conversation Project it's our home for headline news, information, and pop culture references that are worth chatting about. And today, 8 stories for our Wednesday, including the 50-year mortgage that may not quite work out as well as Donald Trump thinks it is. Also, Allison Mack speaks out in a new documentary because you've got to make money off these things. And Bob Ross is making money for PBS on the aftermath to try to save some stations who now are dealing with financial issues, plus 5 other stories that are worth chatting up that you guys helped us pick out by following us on our feeds. Our feeds, by the way, are on Facebook and X. Facebook.com/This is Conversation Project and X.com/TH_conversation. Also follow us at our website. This is a conversationproject.com for many things to learn about us, including more about many of our sponsors and partnership opportunities. We'll talk about one spotlight sponsor, which will be Ground News, in just a bit once we get through all the news today. But 8 stories first, and then we'll do the sales stuff in a bit. Let's get into those stories right now and get the ball rolling, if you will. We're kicking things off with the government shutdown, although actually we're just talking about SNAP. SNAP, right now, the Supreme Court actually held on to the benefits hold before the shutdown actually ends. Now, the big news is the fact that the Supreme Court is going to keep in place the emergency order that blocks full SNAP payments by the government. Donald Trump has been fighting to pull up SNAP payments during the shutdown. And so they get to do that based off Supreme Court rulings. There was one very, very, very vocal objection to this one coming from Justice Brown. But, excuse me, in the meantime, as the government moves to open the government, Congress and stuff moves to open the government, get things going again, get things restored. Right now, the expanded benefits for SNAP will not be given out to folks because the pause affects roughly 42 million low-income Americans, about 4 billion in aid total, with one note of dissent, as I said, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson saying this is wrong, this is bad. But the other justices apparently along with the hold for the moment. Now, practically, the states can keep paying the lower amounts until the justice acts or lawmakers actually fund up the catch-up going forward. So they can keep paying out SNAP benefits. They can't keep paying out the maximum that they've been told to do before. Anti-hunger groups say the timing magnifies the food insecurity heading into the holidays, and of course, being 40 or so days without having paychecks for many folks out there in the wild. Policy takeaways for agencies and grocers are to prepare for elevated demand for food banks, even as the uneven redemption patterns are happening right now and back pay will later come in. The real issue is right now that the Democrats are essentially in the House, apparently going to fight to not open the government even after Democrats in the Senate join with some Republicans to put up some sort of way to make things work. This thing may not actually end as quickly as it needs to end going forward. Paramount Skydance had 600 employees actually quit as opposed to held to a return to office mandate, which actually cost $185 million for the company. This is an interesting switch to what's going on there. Filings show that the 600 Paramount Skydance employees that took a buyout rather than leave their confines of their home to come back to work for the 5-day mandatory return to work mandate made $185 worth of severance related costs in the company. Now, in many cases, these things are cost saving issues, but it's still money that goes out the front that you have to account for going forward. Leadership pitched the policy as essential for speed post-merger, but the exit concentrations in back office and overlapping some creative roles as well. So this was a way to clean house, if you will, and it was a cost that was going to be taken on. 600, a larger number than I think they expected in the get-go. The move comes alongside the broader cost cuts with additional reductions reported coming forward and some sales from assets in Latin America to make the books look better going forward. Now, what happens with these things is when people decide to not come back to work or people decide to leave and take those cuts, they, being the companies, lose some talent. A lot of times you'll see people who are basically riding time until their retirement or looking for a new job eventually soon will take this jump and take their lumps with what's going on with it, and great talent and great knowledge will go out the door, and you'll have that talent sunk. That will be a big deal. Tighter performance targets will be expected as they have to greenlight more projects and make certain things work with the new batches. We'll see how they work out with the new merging and how things are going right now. No one's complaining at the moment, but it's early. Complaints around Amazon are happening as the corporate job cuts hit another job at 700 corporate jobs cut in New York City offices this week. About 660 to 700 folks will lose their roles over the course of the past couple days, plus a few more days. Being eliminated at 9 Manhattan offices, a part of their corporate downsizing that was planned in a way. The plan was to cut about 14,000 corporate jobs totally in October as the company relocates and spends more with AI as opposed to actual humans working in the field. Here's what we're seeing right now. Warehouse and delivery operations not part of this round. So as far as we can tell, all the folks are still working and moving things around. Will be there for your Christmas holiday gifts. Just the folks in the back offices working on the paperwork that makes it work. Local impact skewers towards tech and high and headquarter functions in Hudson Yards and the Fifth Avenue hubs. With the tech corridor in New York City having more and more senior resumes hitting the market, hiring budgets will remain tight going forward. This means the people who were actually earned some tenure and earned some respect in the Amazon hierarchy on the high end in the tech industry, they have a hard time finding a job at the same level of money in New York City or anywhere based off the hiring that is being seen. We'll get to tariffs at the end of today's episode of Things You Might Have Heard. And we always talk around here about Donald Trump and his inability to understand how those actually works. As a developer, as a guy who builds buildings and sells things to people, apparently he doesn't understand quite how mortgages work either, because this is the big hullabaloo of many hullabaloos that came out of a couple of interviews the past couple of days. His 50-year mortgage plan is losing some momentum after experts basically say what the quiet parts out loud, not going to work. Housing economists are saying that the 50-year mortgage idea that trims monthly payments down, but of course balloons them over lifetimes because of interest, is just simple math issues that just won't work. Roughly about $1 to $1.1 million a typical loan can go into for a large scale house. Lenders also worry about prepayment risks and securing appetite for such terms would be not so great for the U.S. fixed Fed rate systems. Right now, your standard mortgage is probably 30 years because in 30 years, a person in their middle 20s would pay off their mortgage in their middle 50s. That makes sense. They can do that in a lifetime. Maybe if it's a 40-year mortgage, it's a bit longer, so you have some smaller payments, but it does mean you're paying that mortgage for a quite long time. If you're assuming you're not going to stay in the house forever, you're going to sell it off, it is what it is. But assuming you buy a house with a 50-year mortgage, which means you won't pay it off until you're in your 70s, when you're in your middle 20s, that's where things get a little weirder, a little odder, and the fact that because they're let's just say they're holding on to that payment much longer, you're paying twice as much than the cost of the house alone. It's not a good idea. It's not a good idea. Oh, by the way, it's not a good idea. But it's one of a few things Trump floated around when he talked about some affordability things where he says affordability is not an issue. It's all fake. It's all a con job because everything costs great money right now, except for beef. We're working on beef right now, but eggs are good, houses are good, everything is good. It's not. This is a part where we take a quick pause and ask for your assistance here with the Conversation Project. We need you to like, share, and subscribe the video you're watching right here, right now, and any other works out there to get more people in our News Nerd Nation. When you like a video, especially on YouTube, it tells the algorithm that it's worthy of watching, and it'll share it with more people. We believe it does that. We got to believe in algorithms, by the way. Just like Santa Claus and Easter Bunny, algorithms exist. It also tells me if I see many likes and many comments that I'm doing a pretty good job with the videos I'm producing, so I should do more of them. Or if you're telling me lots of bad news, I'll do less of them. We'll go with that one. And if you hate like it, I'm okay with that as well. You can share it with like-minded people so that they too can be a part of the News Nerd Fun that we have here. And if we get enough people that engage in it, that will grow as well. If you're not getting this directly into your feeds because you're not a subscriber, how about you subscribe? Subscribe on Facebook or X, where you can also follow along with the feeds and help us pick out the stories every day. And on YouTube, which we are monetized, so we get some bread and butter there. Oh, by the way, on YouTube, if you join us there as a member there, you also get some extra perks as well and help fund the things we do for Conversation Project. The Justice Department is launching an investigation into a UC Berkeley protest after the protesters disrupt a Turning Point USA event. This open probe for handling the protest at the TPUSA event is citing reports of violence and attendee intimidation on the scene. Officials reference potential civil rights issues and coordination with the FBI's JTTF. The university defended its free speech pressure policy, so allowing it to people to basically protest what's going on there. They allow the group to be on the campus, and they allow people to protest as well. That's what they say they're about. Arrests tied to the fracas added to fuel to the national discourse about campus speech and security obligations for these things. Expect that the document to show requests covering how the planning went, how the policing went, and how the venue control decisions went for the entire day. Communications will be something to look out to, where neutrality language from institutions will be tested on the grounds of the video scenes of people being tackled and held back at the issue. Are you sending the right message of peace and free speech when you're having people held back and pushed back at the event, in some cases on both sides, if you will? Allison Mack from Smallville is opening up about her NXIVM life in a new post-prison docuseries that's coming out soon. She gives an exclusive post-prison interview in the CBC podcast and docu project called Allison After NXIVM, the acknowledging the culpability and rejecting the claims of innocence of her time in the cult-like group. She recounts recruitment tactics with DOS and her role in elevating the Keith Rainier, the guy, and in the long central court filings and the issues she's had after her prison stint. Media framing leans on accountability and survivor sensitivity, avoiding sensational reenactments of the actual details. You can expect some renewed attention to the restorative justice narratives from former members as well. These are the things that happens when people who survive these things come out, and the people who manage to survive the anguish, we'll put it like that, of having to deal with these things and the prison sentences that case coming through, trying to redeem themselves and go move forward for the good and better of all of us in theory, and essentially so they can make a living. We'll see what survivors of this cult, something you can call it, will say about Allison Mack and her time on the air, talking about her time in the cult. You'll see more and more stuff. This is also a great way to pitch it, to get more people involved and to get more people interested. We'll see just how interesting it will be going forward. Bob Ross is saving PBS again. His paintings are fetching over $600,000 to support many public broadcasting stations just like yours. 3 originals sold for over $600,000 at Bohem's, kicking off a 30 painting effort to aid in public TV stations hit by federal cuts. Winter Peace led the way, selling for $318,000 on its own, well above the estimates that were there. The proceeds are going to flow through American public television to smaller rural stations who are facing budget gaps. Ross's brand of pandemic era resurgence continues to convert nostalgia for fundraising power across our nation, and specifically in the PBS world. Additional sales are planned in New York and London, so more paintings will be gone on the docket fairly soon to help some other stations around our nation. You can see more of those as come up, and we'll definitely pop up there as the pretty little trees. Those happy little trees will be there to make many PBS stations in rural areas much, much more viable, maybe if not quite happy yet. I promise you tariff talk. We have tariff talk. We're talking tariffs on pasta, Italian pasta, the real deal, if you will. A massive 107% tariff on the imported pastas is being proposed. The Commerce Department is anti-dumping. It's trying to find a way to pave 107% tariff on certain Italian pasta imports to keep the cheaper versions of the real stuff out of the ways to push on our imports, threatening to strike prices on shelves for the gaps for your shoppers around our nation. Brands could pull SKUs or rework supply chains if the duty is finalized after ITC review. If your pasta from Italy is costing you way too much, you might want to pull it off the shelves and sell more of your store brand stuff because people will actually buy it. Retailers may accentuate the private label sourcing by from non-AU suppliers and actually blunt the hits. So maybe folks that aren't exactly the main deal suppliers help this out. Italy is expected to challenge the methodology of this and lobby for some exclusions on many of its pasta sources. The takeaway for us people in the grocery stores who know, as Donald Trump doesn't quite figure out that things cost way too much, promotional cadences to make sure that the imported stuff is pushed out as quickly as possible for the tariffs to kick in, or to find ways to bring it down so people can find some love for the authenticity of the Italian pastas. Yes, that's how tariffs work. Put a tariff on something and it costs more money. So people who buy it give more money to our coffers, but the people have to pay for it here first. That is how the tariffs actually. One thing that works for us is ground news. Ground news allows us to get into the mix and find out more deeper details of any story out there, especially ones that may seem a bit off or a little weird in our aggregation work. Now, I go through many different websites, many different Facebook groups that do news, many things on Reddit that kind of go down rabbit holes, looking for things that are conversational. And so we do have the major stories that the mainstream media will put out there. We do have some of the quirkier offshoot stories, some of the kickers I have there. And we do have some things that are a bit uneven, let's just say. And our news helps us figure out which ones are more uneven than not, so we can hopefully not get caught in or with having the wrong stories out there. If you're a person who wants to see more news stories that are deeper in detail and more bits about how the stories you're seeing out there affect you, like actually affect you, we suggest you use Ground News. We suggest you use our affiliate link because we get a small commission back for you using it. This is a conversationproject.com/ground news. This is a conversationproject.com/ground news where you can get this. You get 40% off their Vantage plan, which allows you access to their blind spot feature. You can see what stories are being overly played out by various sides of the aisle, red or blue, left or right, Republican or conservative. Well, I guess Republican is conservative, Republican or liberal, conservative or Democrat. You get the point. We use this every single day to check out various news stories, and we often take a story and we find something that we see that we like and that's there. Then we'll swap out a conservative headline for a Democratic style link to it, and let people get their minds blown when they read it. We think it's funny. We think it's funny, and you guys can get your more details and do your own research by using Ground News. Use our affiliate link. This is the conversationproject.com/ground news. This is the conversationproject.com/ground news. As we said, we get a small commission. You get 40% off the Vantage plan and all their plans for news. Our website home is this is a conversationproject.com. Our email address online is conversationinbox@gmail.com. You can chat up anything you want to there. And the feeds on Facebook and X allow you to be a part of the show literally by voting up stories that are out there to be engaged in. And of course, you follow us on YouTube. You help us by getting paid. It helps keep this thing going for that one. With that, we're wrapping up for this Wednesday, the 12th of November, 2025. My name is Jay Cleveland Payne. I thank you so much for being a part of what we're doing here, especially in some of the trying times of days like these. Not only are we doing our best to try to literally stay alive, but we're having issues, technical issues that make it hard to make things work here and make it not as much fair in the mixing and matching and the fixing of the stories here. But we're trying to make sure that we're picking things that are conversational, not just straight down the lines, whatever the big rundown is on the morning news, because that it's really old really quick. We want things that people really want to chat about, things that are really interesting things when we're there. So as you give us your suggestions, we will put them into the queue and go forward. Thank you so much for being with us for the Wednesday. Sorry about missing yesterday. We're still having some health issues and some energy issues going there, but we're trying to manage, trying to elevate, trying to mitigate, if you will. Hopefully, we'll have a good Thursday tomorrow. Otherwise, look for some hot takes and some things going forward that may also interest you as well.